Hi, thank you for jumping on today. We're going to talk quickly with an expert in teaching and learning online from Arizona State University. I'm going to bring him on right now. This is Mike Angeletta from the School of Life Sciences, who's the president's professor and also an associate director of undergraduate programs in the School of Life Sciences. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us.
You're welcome, Bridget. Thanks for having me.
So you and I were just chatting a bit about your background, but can you share for our audience, you have a lot of experience teaching online and not all of it asynchronous. So hopefully you can give us a little bit of advice, guidance as folks are in this, either their first, second, or third week of teaching distance.
Yeah, online is nothing new for us here at ASU. I started my first online class in 2014 and have been teaching online as well as on ground ever since. In fact, I now built 5 online courses, and in 2018, I shifted entirely to teaching online because we've had tremendous growth in the online environment. We've had growth on ground, but the growth online has been exponential. And so I have a lot of experience in teaching both synchronous, as you pointed out, where students have to come to a particular chat room or Zoom room at any particular event and you're all live. And I've also taught where it's completely asynchronous, where students are learning on their own at any time, and I have to provide all the resources for that kind of experience.
Great, but you have a lot of experience previously in person, and you choose to do this online. Can you share what your favorite parts about teaching online are for folks who are just dabbling?
Yeah, what I really like about teaching online is that it offers you the chance to build a course that you can physically see. In other words, all the online materials that you build, whether it's video lectures that you record at your home, which you can do now, or in a studio, or whether it's readings or exercises, they all physically will exist then when the course starts, like the online course in an ideal world, not under our current circumstances, but in an ideal world, you build all those and then you can see that path, which really emphasizes the thoughtfulness of how you put a course together. Whereas often when we first started teaching, it was, oh, geez, I got an exam next week. I guess I better start writing that exam. In an online course, all that stuff's been built. And so it really emphasizes backwards design, where you start with, what are my learning goals for the students? What are the outcomes I want them to achieve? What assessments, what final exams, assignments, and other things would I use to determine whether they achieve those goals? And then how do I build learning experience or activities that are required for a student to master the concepts needed to achieve those goals? And so there's that whole thought process that starts from the endpoint and moves backwards, which has to be done in an online course, which unfortunately you can get away with not doing in a face-to-face course as you're doing it as you go.
Cool. So can you now, for folks who are in the first, second, or third week, unexpected teaching distance, just clarifying that, do not expect that you need to create a course from scratch online.
That's right. I should tell you that we have tremendous resources here to support faculty at ASU Online. We have instructional designers in our school. We have them at ASU Online in general, and we spend 6 months developing a proper online course. So what we're doing now, I would not call it online course. I would call it remote instruction, digital learning, whatever buzzwords you want to use. Don't hold yourself to the same standard that you would if you had 6 months to develop an online course. But I would say you can still ask the same questions that I ask when I develop an online course 6 months ahead of time. What are the goals? If I have 3 weeks left in the semester, what were the goals that I had for those 3 weeks in the course? How do I plan to assess how students were going to achieve those goals? Maybe that plan is no longer valid. Maybe I have to go to a very different form of assessment because maybe I was going to do an in-class experience or a group assignment. So they're just not going to work for students that don't have reliable internet access or webcams or whatever it is. And here at ASU, we've been telling our faculty, you have to be flexible. You have to ask, can I stay true to my goals in any way possible? And then come up with the kinds of activities, whether they be readings, lectures, interactive assignments. It could be meetings in Zoom with instructors or teaching assistants, or even with other students. Come up with those kinds of things that you think would guide students towards that goal. And to me, the number one lesson here, a rule here is flexibility. Like, don't hold yourself to the same exact thing that you would be doing if you were in a classroom setting. Don't hold yourself to even the same exact thing you might have experienced in an online course, because you have days to prepare for this. And you need to do the best that you can and leverage all the resources that are possible.
That's great. Yeah, we don't want people judging this experiment as a true test of online capabilities, and it's also distance versus online. You're seeing quite a bit of transition.
Yeah, and again, think about it from the student's perspective. Not only are the faculty moving online within days, the students are moving online within days. And we see students that don't have the technology to learn online the way an online student would. So a traditional online student, they're told ahead of time, they have to have a certain type of computer, they have to have a certain webcam, they've tested all their technology. You're going to experience all kinds of hiccups from your student's perspective. And that's why that flexibility is really important, because you're not just thinking about your sanity, but you're thinking about the clarity of your students' minds when they come to your course. If they're worried about, if I don't have a certain technology because my professor demands it, then I'm going to be in trouble. Zoom's a really nice feature because Zoom works in a web browser, right? As opposed to other things where you have to sign up and have an account in order to show up. Now, of course, there's all kinds of things like people stay one track ahead of technology, and there's Zoom bombing and stuff like this happening. And again, if something happens in your class, I would just relax, deal with it accordingly. And if you want, we have some resources for how to deal with things like Zoom bombing and other unexpected mishaps that might come up with technology. And we can make those available as links for your watchers.
Yeah, and as someone who experienced Zoom bombing for the first time on Friday, I am so empathetic to faculty it's a new medium, it's all of this going on, and then it's a very jarring experience. So I'm hoping that Zoom will change some of their internal protocols on the accounts as a standard feature, but I also, for folks who are watching, we will elevate the ASU resources to avoid Zoom bombing, because it's something I hope you don't have to experience.
Sure. Yeah. And this is going to happen with any technology. Someone's going to figure out a way to cause trouble with it, right? Or someone's going to find out a way to cheat. And so we have meetings with all of our faculty groups now. We have very large courses like genetics and evolution that are taught in 4 sections at one time. And so all of our faculty have to ask, how are they doing it to coordinate in a way that that's not unfair to some students in some sections. And what we say to faculty is look, you have to think about what you can do online, not what you were going to do on ground. And so you have to basically always look for whatever resources you can use. And they wanted to do things like video exams with lockdown browsers. Some students don't have the capacity their computer won't work with a lockdown browser, or they don't have a webcam. And you might say, well, it's just $20 to $30 for webcam, but they may already be facing financial burden. And so we're just telling people that you have to work with a student, and there's always going to be a way to cheat. Like Zoom bombing is a form of causing a pain in the butt with the system, but there's always going to be cheaters and things like that, other things. And you're going to have to do the best you can. And you're not going to you shouldn't lose sleep over the small things that you can't do it. The reality is there's a literature on this. And, most people want to be honest, especially when they think they're being watched. And if you were to even have things like an honor code that pops up at the beginning of the quiz, and you have them fill that out and sort of make a digital signature and a photo of yourself, next to this honor code, that kind of a treatment in psychology experiments actually has the effect of making people more honest in the things they do after that. So you can use little tricks like this that, you wouldn't necessarily think of, that actually come from the literature. And it's not the same as actually having someone on video, but in reality, who's going to go back and watch all those videotapes anyway? We just don't have the staff to do it right now. So having the video is deterrent, which means you could have other forms of deterrence that are less technologically savvy, but still almost as effective.
So can you continue? That was very helpful. Can you share other tips, tricks, advice? Imagine that I'm a faculty member. This is my first day. So some campuses, they're coming back from spring break today. What advice would you give to help me navigate the terrain ahead?
Well, so first you're going to have to get familiar with your technological options. And so for some faculty, you've even seen people make sort of funny musical videos out of this about how clueless they were technologically. I'm not on any social media, so I'm one of those guys. But I know Zoom and stuff like that, but there's always technologies even I don't know. You're going to have to contact someone or read some resources to get up to speed on things like Zoom. You're going to want to know how your settings work. You don't want to go into a lecture not having tried out the technology, not having said, how do I have a student share his or her screen? How do I share my screen? How do I mute all the people that are in that room? So these are the kinds of things you're going to look for in these links, like this kind of information, so that you feel like you're a master of the arena in which you're going to teach. That's if you're doing, especially if you're doing a synchronous lesson like a Zoom video. I used to use other software called Shindig, which is proprietary, so you have to pay for it. But there are lots of different software packages like this. Zoom also allows you to do similar things where you can have students meet in groups within these rooms. If you know how to use these technologies, they can be incredibly effective for teaching. In fact, just as effective as on ground. In fact, maybe even more effective because students don't have to travel. So you're saving them time. Students are in the comfort of their own home, so they're relaxed. And if you record these things, like Zoom allows you to do, students that can't make it for whatever reason, especially if they become sick, are going to be able to watch it. And students that do attend are going to be able to watch it over and over again. So there are a lot of advantages that you can discover if you actually learn about the technologies available for teaching online. But again, just get back to really thinking about how you use your time with students, whether it's things that you ask your students to do outside of class in terms of their time, or things that you ask your students to do with you in these rooms. You want to really plan for what that experience is, because what will happen is if a student, and this is just human nature, you do the same thing, I'm sure. If you get the idea that it's a waste of your time, that you're not getting the most out of that time you're being asked to put in, you're basically not going to invest time. So you'll see at some sections, if this is not well thought out online, attendance will drop down to like maybe 30% or less of the classes actually showing up. Whereas we have other sections at ASU where like nearly 100 attendance went up. It's nearly 100% attendance now because they're really loving this Zoom experience and they're chatting with TAs or their instructor in the little chat box, and then they're asking, hey, when we go back to regular classes, can we have this chat box still? Because, you know, can you imagine you're in a class of 300, there are a number of people who are uncomfortable asking questions in a class of 300 that's live that now all of a sudden are throwing questions at the instructor through a chat box anonymously, and they're feeling like this is a liberating experience for them. This is just some thoughts off the top of my head. I don't know if you have any follow-up questions.
Well, I'm curious about the chatbot. What chatbot are you using? Because I know you all work with.
Oh, sorry, chat box. Maybe I'm not.
Chat box.
Yeah. No, I mean, bots are awesome sometimes. And, you know, we work on some of those for frequently asked questions in other courses, but I think most people are going to be just trying to figure out a chat box, right? And it will be really helpful with a chat box if you have someone, whether it's an undergraduate teaching assistant or someone you could get as a volunteer to monitor that chat box. You might even think about it if it's a course where you don't have a teaching assistant. You might think about having a colleague who does that for you, and you do that for a colleague in return, because it's difficult for you to both run the class, right? You know, turning people on and on, bringing them up to the screen, allowing them to share their screen, muting people, and also at the same time monitor the chat box, right, where people are going to be throwing questions at you. So there are a lot of things you might think about doing. You might also take an A student who's just acing the course and say, hey, would you mind checking out the chat box? And periodically I'll check in with you instead of checking in with everyone else. You just, again, think creatively about how you can be flexible in the way that you teach in this online environment.
That's super helpful. I really appreciate you offering this advice to the broader community. Is there anything else that you want to share before we log off? I want to make sure to give you any last word in terms of resources that you would direct people to.
No, I will just say that if you have questions, that you can send them to me, and whether I will answer them directly or forward them to our, like I said, our instructional designers in the School of Life Sciences who deal with these things. We're actually fortunate to have a really great support network because we've been teaching online for 5 years in our unit. And we realize that not everyone is. So this is a time where we can reach out to others and provide help. And so I'm happy to provide links or refer questions to people who are the experts here.
Great. How can people get in touch with you? You're not on social, you said? I'm
not on social media, but I am. I haven't been on Facebook in 5 years. So I haven't posted anything. But my email address is ma@asu.edu. It's really easy to remember, just my initials for Mike Angeletta. And
for other folks who are looking for resources online, you should take a look at ASU4U is the digital asset catalog. I think I froze. Anyway, I'm pulling back on. Can you see me now?
Yep, I had you the whole time.
Okay, cool. Take a look at ASU4U, and it has all the digital assets that ASU is putting out there that folks can be using, including courses, their digital high school labs, all of it. All
Thanks,
right.
Bridget.
Thanks, everybody.